And we're live. This is it. The first live stream by Nine Directions. I'm all by myself. That's fine, I'm good. So, as this is the first live stream for Nine Directions, I should say something wise. I don't have anything wise to say. What should we talk about? Welcome to live chat. Remember to guard your privacy and abide by the community guidelines. That's good sense. It's scary being the first time live. But that's the point of trying new things. I've been in the Forge all day. So let's talk about Forge. So today, I've been working on Shuko, or at least a new style of Shuko. Can I have a knife? No, yes. I can teach you how to make a knife, and you can make a knife. So I would like to talk about really anything that the questions. I'd like to answer questions. I did an interview a couple months back, and so many wonderful questions were asked, and I didn't get to answer any of them, which really sucked. I'm a kid. Well, I can't give you a knife then, but you can still learn how to make a knife. I was a kid, and I'd already made a few knives. They weren't that great, but they still counted as knives. I had my first forge was just a propane torch, just a simple plumber's torch. And then I had my anvil. It's the same anvil I've had since a little kid. You put it really tight, and I would use that as my anvil. Vise. It was a vise that I used as an anvil. What are we doing? What do you want to do? I'd like to answer questions on martial arts or forging or swords or really anything. Though I keep trying to talk about this, which is just my filler piece, because I've been working on these all day long being in the forge, which is fun because I didn't burn any of them, I didn't break any of them, and all of the teeth survived quite nicely, which doesn't always work out in the charcoal forge because that temperature gets really hot. 1600 degrees Fahrenheit melts steel, roughly. I'm not a scientist. But with those types of temperature, they turn steel to liquid awfully quick. So if you're not paying attention, they're just gone. So normally when I'm making these, I like to make it like 2 extra, just cause I will break them, melt them, or screw them up. Because if they don't look proper, you can't sell that's not proper. That's just not cool. A terrible way to start a sentence. So in other projects, so if you are part of already a subscriber, you know what's going on here, but I'm going to ramble about it anyways. This is the Wolverine claws that I'm working on. This is like Mach 3 at this point. What gets me is the distance between these to get them to work. But finally, I've got that spacing correct. They're into the knuckles where they need to be. How much metal does it take to make them? Actually, a small amount of this. This is just small bits of steel that were left over. It's 1/4 by 1 that's been forged out in place. As you can see, it doesn't, there's a few issues that I've got to get rid of here on this one. So next is to replace this piece of wood, which is nasty, with a piece of steel. My theory right now is I'm going to sandwich 2 of these together on both sides and then use some bolts to hold in place. I say that though not knowing if it's going to work, because currently I think that is more than, to hold in place. There we go. You open the finger, it may be too much. So, got to try it first anyways. And once this is in place, then I'm going to move on to getting these all lined up. On top of that, this needs to be extended just that little bit more. So I'm going to put a mold into, or jig into the shop to get them all centered. Next, why not use rubber instead of wood? Oh, tried hitting with them. Yes, actually, I've used these as hammers, unless you're talking about this, and then not yet, because there's no edge with it. I don't like rubber. I don't like plastic, though they're fine substitutes. I don't use them. I find they smell. I like wood, and I use wood for a lot. Currently, I'm working on this. It's a practice katana for a next video of showing how you would face off against Shuko as a catching tool. This is solid aluminum. And just a really simple, and I must admit, an ugly handle plus tsuba. But it's a great start for something that's just for practicing. And as it looks great, there's no actual edge to get me cut. So look for that video where I'm going to be catching these. So it's either going to be a really awesome video where I catch them and able to show how it works, or it's going to be a video of me breaking my finger or having my finger broken. It really depends on your perspective on this one. Thank you. I do think it's cool, though I am really biased on this. I think it's all really quite cool. There's always 1,000 things I'm working on. It would be really nice if I were to be able to finish one before moving to the next. So, and I am surrounded by things that I have not finished. This one, top of it, it is almost finished, but it's nice and light. So this is a mask. This is one of my own masks. Have you cut off your finger? Have you almost cut off your finger? Yes, it depends, again, on your perspective. I've cut off the very end of my finger, and it was maybe only like 2/16, or I guess that would be 1/8 of an inch of skin, but it counts when you do charcoal, when I do charcoal, when I cut charcoal. There's lots. So you're constantly having to hold that little piece and cut. And at every time, which I do once a week now, and it takes about 4.5, 5 hours to do my charcoal cutting. Yeah, but only just, so that doesn't technically count because I still have all my fingers. Yeah, and on this one, but the Band-Aid fell off. Can you show us how to make a katana? Oh my God. I would love to show you how to make a katana, but there's people on YouTube that do such a better job of showing you how to make a katana. I can give like the quick Cole's Notes version of how to make a katana, but myself, no, there's much better people to learn for that. What is your biggest project? Probably is a katana is my biggest project. And I state that solely on the fact that's that heat treat. I've heard it once said that when you're talking about a Japanese smith, their biggest ability is the control of heat. You think that the steel has to be within so many degrees to even get it to be hard, to hold that edge, let alone bring it up back to 200 degrees to bring it to the right temper. If you get the first one off, it's either going to crack or it's not going to be hard. You get the second one off, it's not going to soften or it's going to stay too brittle. So just that control of heat. So when you think over, this is a 26-inch blade. Personally, I like a 29-inch blade. So you've got to keep a heat constant through this whole blade while not really allowing it to enter into the tang, which would be underneath this handle. So that would be the biggest in the sense of like fear. And I say that because I have already spent I probably more than 2 weeks forging out just that blade. And within 2 minutes of getting that heat treat wrong, it could just be absolute garbage. And I like the fear and it moves me forward, but that would be my biggest. No, I have not done. You are spelling it correctly. I have not done a climbing demo for Shuko. I had a video started for that and I recorded it and then I viewed it and then I didn't like it. I didn't like it. One, it was raining terribly and I did not keep cleaning my lens. I am much better with a hammer than I am with a camera or modern tech. You're supposed to clean your lenses constantly. I'm learning. So I am planning out a Shuko video for climbing, and I'm planning out a Shuko video for working with sword, and also planning a Shuko video for doing some taijutsu. I say that though, it's a difficult angle to get to show how these claws would work. This is good. This is going easy. I'm able to read the questions as they're coming out. So thank you so much for all the questions so far. Oh, what should I, have you ever built a gun? As a blacksmith, I would love to build a gun. Legally, I'm not allowed to build a gun. That's because it's a projectile. I get that. The closest thing that I can do is my space blasters. So this one is a purchased blank that's been worked on. But with that stated, in the forge, I have 2 other projects I want to work on. Both are blasters, but they would pretty much all be done in the forge out of steel. They're going to be heavy as all get out. And that's kind of the fun. That one I think is almost at 3 pounds. Do you need paperwork to make a weapon? No, you don't need paperwork. Of course, you have to be aware of the laws in your areas. So currently, I had a video go interesting, and what is it? A folding knife? It's not a knife. It's a spinning knife. It's a butterfly knife. And everyone's, where's the butterfly knife? As a Canadian, I'm not legally allowed to own a butterfly knife because it's gravity driven. So I can't make that. Even to just keep it at home, it's considered a prohibited weapon. Where it comes to just single knives, swords, claws, all of this can be made, but of course you can't go and do nasty things with it. You can't carry it around and do nasty things. You just can't carry it around. These are things that, much like you take them to the dojo, you keep them at home, you don't be an idiot with them. So no paperwork. Though on the note of paperwork, I find this quite interesting to a traditional polisher of the katana. When a polisher gets in a new katana, it has the wave pattern on it. Now the wave pattern is the hamen, and the hamen is the hardened steel. Now this katana is much similar to a practical hamen, and a practical hamen would just be straight, but in some cases the hamens are much more lively. The Bizen school, to me personally, have the most beautiful hamens out there, and the sword polishers will painstakingly draw every detail of the hamen so they can go back. They'll always know what sword they had to look back on. Also, when they're polishing, they can bring out those extra details because there's so much work that goes into bringing out a polish. This is not a fine example of a great polish. This is my cutter, so it has a lot of abuse. What's your favorite weapon? Oh, that is what is my favorite. That sword would have to be my favorite of all, but then quite quickly goes to, I'm going to be able to share all my toys. So the katana is my favorite. Now that's the caveat because I think it's the most beautiful and it's the most stunning. But when it comes to like the most practical for me, I love sai. I love sai. They're a close range, they're a short range, they're a medium range. You can bloody well throw them if you want to. They can take a lot of hitting, blunt force trauma. They're definitely like close second to a katana. Katana is my favorite. If you ever made a hatchet, I have made a hatchet and I totally botched it. When you make hatchets or axes, you only heat treat. I don't have an axe. That's a shame. I don't have an axe in front of me. Let's pretend this is an axe. When you heat treat, you want to only heat treat the actual cutting edge of an axe. My brilliant self decided I'd heat treat the entire hatchet, and I did not get the temper right. So we're going to say I've never made a hatchet successfully. That's still on the list to be done. What is your first sword? Oh, my first sword is gone. I sold that. It was so sad. It was supposed to be a cutting edge, didn't actually ever cut properly, and I turned it to my EI. So that was the sword I did all of my drawing with. So that was 1,000 a day drawing techniques. Pardon me, cutting techniques. I only did 500 cuts. That was my first and favorite sword. I miss that sword. I also miss the last sword I had. But more importantly now, I miss the sword that I haven't made. So that sword behind me needs to be replaced with the swords I am currently forging. I feel like I need to sell that one because I always go to it for practice. And because I have it, I don't bother finishing the katana that I'm currently working for myself. It's like lazy. So I really need to get back to work on these things. It's amazing how work will get in the way of like normal creating and the piles of stuff that's being worked on. Excuse me, I'm gonna have a sip of water. What else is going on? As this is my first live, I'm still kind of getting in the hang of how this all works. What is the best weapon for combat? Bloody well, the mind. I know that's not what you were looking for, but the mind is the best tool overall. The best tool. But for combat, it really depends on what kind of combat you're going to. Have you made video game stuff before? Yes. I used to do a lot more custom work than I do now. And I have made a few... Oh no, those were anime tools. No, I don't think I've made video game. There was a kunai, but this didn't actually, I didn't mean to make it. There was a kunai, I think from Assassin's Creed, that I had made before Assassin's Creed was released. So that was just kind of like a happy accident. The best weapon for combat? Oh, that's a good question. I kind of want to revisit that. What about the action figures in the background? I like action figures. Ninja Turtles are the number one. Then I've got an Assassin Droid and Ghostmaker because he has a wonderful color scheme. I know nothing about Ghostmaker. I was in a GameStop and that was there and I had to bring him home. The color scheme was great. Close range combat. Oh, I go Shuko right away. Sai, I like because you can spin it around. You've still got that distance and you can change that distance. For close combat, Shuko, because you don't get really any closer than right ahead of you. And I like the idea that it kind of stays hidden. The teeth are on the inside. So nothing really is going to happen until that attacker has decided, like, I can't put them off anymore, because my favorite technique is to talk my way out of everything. I don't want to be in a fight. Fights are nasty. So I'm going to talk first. But if it comes, something this close from a historical sense is a fun idea. Where did I learn about martial arts? A lot of books. It started with a lot of books, and I own and have read so many of them, but that never changes for what a teacher can give you. So I started off with a video learning course with Master Van Donk. It was great. I got a bunch of VHS sent to me, and I watched those things religiously. I didn't understand, and it all looked not wrong, but of course I didn't understand it. So of course, it asked more questions. So fast forward a few years, at that point, there was no dojo near me where I lived. And fast forward a few years, there still was no dojo near me. So I searched out a dojo in Toronto. So I was about 3 hours away from that spot. And then for a few years, I traveled back and forth for a lot more than a few years, traveled back and forth. So I did my training on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And then, well, that's a story for another time. Jump forward at the same time of training at that. Is that an axe? Probably not. I don't have an axe behind me. So training at that, I also was able to try to study in Heiho Niten Ichiru, which is a really cool old school samurai art. That was Miyamoto Musashi's sword school. Is what an axe? Thank you, Poppy PvP. You learn martial arts. I feel like I'm still learning martial arts. You always learn. The best time to learn martial arts is when you're by yourself. When you're with your instructor, you're looking at the details. I know that's kind of off. Where did you learn martial arts? Because of course you learn it in the dojo, but it's the practice. It's those hours that you do on yourself, with yourself. That's where you learn a real martial art. That's when you can get the real skill. I got a bunch of rando sword parts. Where were you inspired by something? Yeah, I was inspired by, I guess, comic books. Comic books, it was philosophy. There was a comic, I can't even tell you what comic it was, but the story was that the sword was stronger that never left its scabbard. And as an 8-year-old, that truly confused me. How could a sword be strong if it was never released? Then fast forward to the Ninja Turtles, this variant, there was the you win without fighting. Well, then why would you spend so much time practicing how to fight if you win without fighting? So my inspiration was that you trained hard to never use it. And I thought that was just the best idea. And as I'm also interested in the idea of enlightenment, which also has really similar, non-straightforward ideas. Hello, new subscriber. Do I have any far range weapons? Yeah, I guess a bow and arrow. Archery would be the furthest range that I have, but the arrows are way over there. This is not at all anything traditional. I guess in modern times it's traditional, but that's my bow for long range. But with that statement, long range is archery, though also, I'll drop a few things. Long range can be filled with shuriken. So if you can, however far you can actually throw that, it's going to allow you that distraction. Where of course the archery, you can be a lot more accurate with it. You're looking to move someone. Ninja Star Shuriken, that's cool. No, I do not. The bow shuriken is all I have. Much like the butterfly sword in Canada, the Sanben shuriken, the disc, the Ninja Star, the true, is prohibited. It's really sad, especially as a blacksmith who also trains in the art. I can't have those. Oh, like total tears. I wish I could have the Sanben shuriken. I will upload more videos. If you have ideas or comments, hey, let me know. I'm always looking for more ideas, though I already have like 5 or 6 in the bank and a whole many ideas of what to show. But I tend to get off onto my own, like Shuko. I really like these. These are the strangest things. Hell yeah, I like to inspire. Train hard. 15 years old, just think if you start studying now, imagine where you'll be in another 15 years. Not only like how healthy your body would be and how strong your mind can become. It's a way of life. It becomes part of just your existence. So that's awesome to hear. I hope you do. That no matter what you're doing, like even start just punching in the air, your basic practice for anything. Once you get 10,000 in, it's becoming your own. You can start manipulating it. I'm kind of biased. I'm a big fan of ninjutsu, which is based highly on taijutsu, which is just your regular body movement. I find it so inspiring, really, because within ninjutsu, most all of the practitioners you see will look different, will move different, and have different aspects to their technique, because every single body is different. Of course, everyone's single technique is a little different. So no matter what teacher you find, you will find not only does their technique move a little bit more, so let's say from like Hatsumi Soke, but then to you get to start finding yourself. So as a way to look inward, it's a beautiful art. I do have nunchaku. I have old school. Now, nunchaku, I guess technically are also prohibited because they're a gravity-based tool, but as mine are more just simple wood, I guess if I have to burn them, I have to burn them. But I like these. These are like my morning routine. You can like skip rope, which usually just makes me trip, and then I stop and I lose all my rhythm. So I like to go back and forth to using nunchaku as that spinning mechanism because it really engages the shoulders and the arms. Yeah, I like nunchaku. Okay, more water. Then also as a range tool, this is a fun one because this is a kunai, which it's not a knife, but it can be used as a knife. Traditionally, there's no edges to it. It was just meant for prying, but it worked as a ninja tool because as ninjas were peasants, they weren't allowed to carry, like actively arm themselves because it really stood out well. But again, as just a simple digging tool, this could be used to fill in the distance of your adversaries, depending on, I guess, what warfare you're studying or contemplating. What else we got? I filled my table full of wonderful toys. Spoon. Honestly, I go right to the Prince of Thieves. Alan Rickman. That's probably not the name, but that's a nasty weapon. Dig your heart out with a spoon. This is, how did you end up being a blacksmith and a martial artist? Yeah, good question. How did I end up? How does anyone end up where they are? I'm guessing inspiring as we go. So ninjutsu, I became a huge fan, and then within the art, there's so many wonderful tools. But being in Canada, and my teacher did have many tools to train with. Of course, we didn't have all of them. Shuko was my first. There was no Shuko. And I thought, as up until that point, I'd already built everything myself. It's like, well, why can't I learn how to blacksmith? So I found an old forge in St. Catharines, that's in Ontario, and they had a blacksmith shop. It wasn't working. The forge was down, and I asked if I could fix it. Could I use it? And it was agreed. I had to make nails for when people showed up, but I was allowed to use the blacksmith shop. So that's where it started. As for the martial arts, I get back to the original story of being inspired by the strength of a sword as one that's never taken from its sheath. This is a terrible way to answer a question, but it feels wrong not to. I've been studying martial arts for as long as I remember, as it's always just been a deep passion. So exactly where it came from anymore, I'm not even too sure. It looks like an axe. What looks like an axe? What is next to the shelf? Oh, the bloody axe. Okay, yeah, I know what you're talking about. The actual axe. This is from another supplier. This is the Casabiria axe. Just to show you a bit of an edge. So this is a purchase tool. I've always wanted a double axe. And as a blacksmith, I should really make my own. So though I love this tool, I need to make my own. As for anime that I watch, ooh, so favorite one is Gurren Lagann Tengen Toppa. To me, the best anime. Currently, I'm watching Hellsing. I'm a big Trigun fan. Of course, Naruto. I read all of the manga. I still remember the day when that last manga came out of the original Naruto series. And yes, that axe is sharp. Some people say axes shouldn't be sharp, but I disagree. I think everything should be sharp. It's just safer that way. And what other anime? I said Trigun. Gurren Lagann Tengen Toppa. I think everyone should. That is just an anime of willpower. And willpower is just the best. I think. Favorite weapon is kunai. That's a hell of a good choice because you've got so many options. Because like technically, that's a kunai. It could be sharp. It doesn't have to because it still works as a throw. So I'm glad some people are realizing they're getting some favorite weapons today. It's funny how these tools can inspire us to, I hope, to do better than what we are today because I use the word tool so we can build. Thank you. Oh, so many tools, so many weapons. What else should we talk about? I still have so many more to pull from. Okay, it's becoming more of a toy time. I want to share, I think, my personal, the nicest gift I've ever received. This is something really special. So I was asked earlier about what martial arts that I studied, and one of which was Heiho Nita Nichiru. And that was Miyamoto Musashi's school of martial arts. Now, when I was a kid, that was one of the first books I read on the martial arts was the Book of Five Rings. So when I studied in the dojo, I got to study with an incredible sensei, Sakamoto sensei. And Harumi-san was my senpai. She was strong. She was a lot shorter than I. She weighed a lot less than I, and she kicked my ass on a regular. She was really great with the sword. And after about a year of training with her, she invited me for coffee. And she came in to give me this, which I must say, it looks like a stick. Because it is. This is a stick. But at the time when I trained with her, Soke, Owame Soke of Heiho Nita Nichiru, had carved this for her and presented it to her from, so side note, the first story of Musashi, he cuts a limb off of a tree to go into one of his main battles. This stick comes from the son of that tree. It is a relic for me. It looks so good. What's the best way to sharpen swords like katana? Okay, whetstones. You need whetstones. If you're going to sharpen a katana, you're going to have to take the time to get that first foundation polish. You're going to look, best to buy a book. You're going to look for an apple seed, because the big thing that people get wrong when they're sharpening a katana, they automatically think that there's going to be two lines. So there's the two faces. Let's actually use a real katana for a moment. And if you've got two faces, you might think that those angles are going to be flat. So this cutting surface, I can't really show it to you. No, I'm doing a lousy job. But if you can imagine an apple seed, you've got just that slight curvature. So when you're working on the actual edge, you know that you're looking for a rounded side profile. Oh, that doesn't even begin to start how to polish a Japanese sword. But it's just, no, Japanese swords like katana. I actually have a video, if you're interested, on my main page about sharpening knives. It's the same process. It's the same process for what we're talking about here, the simplified version, to get into the big details of how you actually polish. Because the word is polish. You don't sharpen a Japanese sword, you polish a Japanese sword. It's a much finer finish, but of course a better cutting edge. Geez, I am not too sure. I was going to be on here for half an hour, and that runs out in, I think, less than a minute. Though I think I will stick on here for a while longer. If people are here and interested, I will stay on for probably another half an hour. So thank you. And you live in South Africa. That's awesome. It's not like you traveled to see this, but still, I'm taking that as a compliment. So back to the whetstone. The key is that the simple 30-second elevator speech version for if you want to sharpen really anything is creating a feather's edge. So when you start working that sword on I'm going to hold the sword as if I'm moving it across the stone. You want to bring out the edge, a feather from this edge. And once you can feel that back and forth, you know you're starting to sharpen it. Other than that, that's a really terrible description, but time. Put in tons of time. No, I have not made a whip. I've watched someone make a whip and it is on my list, but I would like to do a braided leather whip, and that I just don't have enough time for yet. And that's really a sad excuse for the most part. We were talking about weaponry, favorite weaponry. On the note of kind of unfavorite weaponry, that is the flexible tools. The flexible tools have a mind of their own. I've trained in Canada, France, the States, and Japan. I like the idea of a sword because it's solid. I always know where it exists. If I am cutting through or across, it's always going to be there. And if it goes past, I can just bring it back. But when it comes to a whip or a flexible tool, they have a mind of their own, and you need to be aware of where they're going to be moving in space. As I am, when I went through the program, the Uchideshi program, a few levels, there's flexible tools. And I did my basics, I did my time, I understood how they moved. I am not good with them. They just don't sing to my little heart. I watched the Kung Fu practitioners that use the darts. They're wrapping around their neck and their wrists and they're throwing it off their feet. I'd just beat myself. I'd be tied up laying on the floor probably laughing. That's just not my world. Do you have any butterfly knives or crambits? No. Now, do you mean a butterfly knife like the spinny one, or a butterfly knife? See, when I hear butterfly knife, I think of something I don't have on the table. I know it as a pirate tool. It's a straight blade that has the original had just a small, but as we've seen them today, they get larger and larger. They've got two grips, so you could pop and you can spin them around. But I think you mean butterfly blades, like you kind of whip them open, they're gravity driven. That's a long story short for Tim. I don't, but a crambit. Is the crambit the curved one? I think the crambit's the curved one. I shouldn't be asking you, but if you're still there, Starflare, let me know if the crambit is that curved one with the ring. Yes, I'm going to say that was to me. Yes, awesome. No, I don't have one. I made a scythe in a crambit style that I wanted to try because I'd like to do a crambit, but I wanted to know the distance I would need for the handle to leave enough steel to forge out that ring. I didn't leave enough steel to forge out the ring. I left way too much, so I folded it over and I made it into a kama. It worked really well until I lost it. So now this wonderful crambit looking kama is lost on the property somewhere. The one with the hole, awesome. Show the Batman kunai. I'll show the Batman. It's not finished. That is the Batman kunai. There's a better example, and by better I mean way worse. I state that because we see this side. This is what I'm working towards. This, because I am so white. That's so handy. That is ugly as sin, but with a file and a few hours work, that'll actually get back to where it needs to be. Feels bad. Yeah, it does. I've lost a few over the time. You know, in a sense, I'd rather at least lose it in the woods because I'll still find it again, potentially. But when I let them melt in the forge, you take a sip of water, you forget for a moment, and you just see those little sparks coming off, and you know that's the carbon burning out of your steel, and you pull that knife out, and you look at it, and it's just so sad because, no, those hours are gone. Oh, on this note, so this is my Batman, my Batarang. It's a 1/4 inch steel. I worked on this design for so long. This throws nicer and is more accurate than every throwing knife I've ever made. These are now like my ultimate favorites. But they're also dangerous as all get out because some dumbass here, yours truly, decided to make pointy parts because it looked better. And of course these have to go in. But what I really like is this aspect. Instead of polishing it sharp, here I left it nice and flat. So when it digs into a target, there's no bending. Handmade, yes. Everything I make is handmade. I have a grinder, but I like the forge to do the majority of the work of my items. I find it looks better. It gives a better feeling, but you don't get the, what, do I have an example? I guess this is the same example again. No, I'll use this for example. That we look at the patina. Now this is unfinished and it's not even cleaned up, but you can just see kind of that dull gray. But as you go, you get the pitting, you get that coloration. Nothing beats the handmade stuff. What's the saddest weapon you've lost? Like the one you've... Oh, okay. So yeah, so when I first started, I was making Boshideken, and these are deceptively simple looking, but really quite a pain to get accurate, at least for me when I began. And I lost a few of them in the woods. Those would be the saddest, because happily I've not lost much of anything. I say yet, because I know the day will come that I will make a katana and I will get that heat treat too hot and I'll crack it. And that will just make me so sad. Because on that note, this is my daily carry. This is an O1 tool steel, which is like an industry. If you want to cut steel, you would make something out of an O1 tool steel. The thing is, an O1 tool steel has a very specific heat treat. For a regular carbon steel, these are old off of a tractor. So I have a very simple, I can quench this in water. I can bring this up to just a dark cherry red and quench it directly into water. If I want to quench it into oil, it'll last a little bit longer because it won't go as hard. Where when you're doing an O1 tool steel, I need to quench this in oil, but not only does it have to be oil, that oil has to be at 200 degrees Fahrenheit. So this one was done in water and it was far too hot, so it's cracked. And can we see? Yes, we can. Or if you can't, just pretend there's a crack right along here. Oh, it's going to be garbage. I've had this now for like 12 years. It used to be like really straight and still hasn't broken. Oh, I love this. What's the worst one you've lost? How long does it take to make a sword? Show us the dagger. I can go to, okay. How long does it take to, I can't even answer that. Oh no, I have done a sword. And that I think took me like 6 months. Again, I say I don't like to use power tools. For the most part, I'm going to remove more than I want in that time. So when I have a file, I can control that. So I made a claymore. I think that one took me about 6 months. And the blade took me just longer than the guard did. That guard was a pain. Gorgeous, but it was a pain. Show us the dagger. I am assuming the dagger from the knife video. Is that correct? Because... well, if it is not in arm's length. It is up there. Oh, it isn't length. Is that, do you know about Shikuro? 6 months. Yeah, 6 months. Now, of course, you can do it much faster than that. You could do it in an afternoon, but you'd have a sword worth an afternoon's worth of work, and it's just not worth it. Pardon me, I need to go upstairs. Okay, the dagger. Claymore, yeah, claymore. I've got wires all around me. So this is, I like this dagger. So it's a rayskin handle. I don't know if you can see that it's all sewn up. The center, mild steel for the pommel and the guard, and then a 1080 for the blade itself. Thank you. I think it's a fine dagger. And as the polish, I've got to about 1,000 so far. But the next step would be a 2,000, and I believe a Haman will come out shown onto this blade. I feel this is my assassin's dagger, so I think it's called a Chris, or it is a Chris. Doesn't matter. There's a dagger that was said that when they forged it out, you forged the blade beautifully, like you would any other dagger, like this dagger. But once the blade was done, you turned your attention to the tang. And then the tang, this isn't even representative of here we go, the tang. Then the tang was like a rat's tail. It was the thinnest piece of steel to go through the handle. And specifically, the whole blade would have been heat treated quite hard. So that means that it was very brittle. And the whole idea of that assassin's blade was that you would into the person and then break off the handle. It was a nasty tool. So the idea was that the the person hiring the assassin would have this blade made up and handed to. So there's really no words going across, and it was that idea that when they were presented back with the handle, the deed was done and no one really had to talk about it. What item have you spent the most effort and time on? How heavy is your anvil? Do you sell your products? I do sell my products. I have an Etsy store under 9 Directions, and I do custom orders. How heavy is the anvil? I have a little baby anvil. I have a 100-pound Farrier's anvil. Bigger anvils have more pack, but as long as you have more foundation underneath your anvil. So I may have a small anvil, but then my stand for my anvil weighs about 200 pounds. And then I have 4 feet of cement underneath my stand. So 4 feet of cement that have bolts coming out of it as the rebar. And then my stand gets bolted into that cement. And then my anvil gets bolted and pressed down into that stand. And that gives me a lot of reverberation. What items have you spent the most effort and time on? Still swords are able. See, overall, it's going to have to be Shuko. I have spent more time working and refining this than any other. For at the beginning, like how beautiful is that? I just bent it over. Butt end joint, close enough. It's, oh, look how even that is. The best thing about these, they're just a little bit too small and they cut into the back. And after about 20 years of forging these, as I've put the most effort in, just like tiny little changes. They look so very similar, but they act differently. They have more life to them. I really want to be a blacksmith. It's a similar job as yours, but I would want to have a shop of my custom tools, or I would make professional orders. Hell yeah. Blacksmithing is awesome. So if you imagine, if you've ever played with Play-Doh, it's very similar. You've got Play-Doh. Instead of being able to touch it with your hands, you're using a hammer and a lot of heat, and you can make anything from those shapes. So as a recycling point, getting into being blacksmith, you can just go find old steel. The best part is finding old, I think, farm equipment, especially the really old stuff before all the steel was irradiated, which today, all of it's irradiated because the air has to be blown into the steel to get that furnace up to a temperature. So old steel is great. New steel is all right. No, you could get like a whole conversation here on the quality of steel from old to new. The old stuff is always nicer. And I'm a big fan of the old. The carbon content just seems more distributed. I think I like that. The ring has something to do with physics. What is the most annoying part of being a blacksmith? Do you make any helmets? I am working on a helmet. They're bloody slow because I still have to work, which is a pain in the ass, and I don't get to give all my time to creating. The most annoying part of being a blacksmith, honestly, pretty much everything is great. One of the clothing. I burn through a lot of clothing. I need to use all natural fibers. Anything plastic just kind of goes poof, and you don't want to catch on fire when you're in the forge. I think the most annoying thing would have to be, and this is such a terrible thing to whine about, cutting all the charcoal. I like using a charcoal forge. There's propane, there's coke. I like the charcoal, and when using a charcoal, the charcoal comes in big chunks and it has to be cut down. So no matter how creative you might be feeling in that moment, if there's no charcoal, you have to stop and do charcoal. And my forge is not heated. The forge tends to heat the space. So when the forge is not running, like when you're chopping charcoal, you tend to freeze for half the year. Of course, depending where you live, I live in a place where I freeze half the year. You're welcome for the tips. I am self-taught blacksmith. I had one lesson. I talked about the smith that I worked in St. Catharines, and after a few months of me being there, they brought in an actual blacksmith, and she was wonderful. She offered to give me some lessons, so I worked on the first few tongs, and after the one day, she's like, okay, well, I kind of showed you all that I know, and it was simple, but it's time. You just need to do time. So that's where I first learned. But I'm still learning. I am still learning. My forge welding I feel still brand new. I've been doing it for years now, but lately I've come to that new level. You know, when you're working on something and you feel you've got it, then you get to that next level and realize everything you've done beforehand just doesn't really compare to what you used to do. I kind of feel that now. As a blacksmith, I'm still learning every time. Make a new weapon you never did. Interesting. A weapon I've never done. All right, on that note, I did a knife video recently and everyone was asking where my Bowie knife was, and I've always wanted a Bowie knife. So I will be doing a video on a Bowie knife. If you actually check out that video, you can vote on that video out of the 5 categories of what will be made for that video. Other than that, I think a crambit would be good because I've never done a crambit other than that close to being a crambit, but that doesn't count. Oh, let's craft a great sword today for it. Yeah, I'm up that, but yeah, I'm also feed. Fires need feed, I need feed. Humans need to eat. It's a pain in the ass. Can't just eat charcoal. School, mostly Toronto. So I'm assuming you're asking not university or college, but where my martial art. I guess I started off in Guelph. I did EI first in Guelph. And then my actual ninjutsu was done in Toronto, and Keiho Nite Nichiru with Toronto. And then, but as part of ninjutsu, you go through your studies, you get your first you get your Shodan. And once you get your Shodan, now it's time to find your own taijutsu. So I was able to take a fun trip to France. Chose France because I didn't speak the language. I only had my taijutsu and a little bit of Japanese, which made the trip really awesome because all of the other practitioners and dojos, most of them did have a little bit of English, but we both had Japanese to go back and forth. So that I felt was a great place for me to learn, because no longer did I have to teach anyone or being taught. I was able to just give into the practice and feel the taijutsu. You lose that language, somehow that just strengthens all the other factors. Okay, let's do a crambit one as well. Thank you for the great content. That once a Bowie knife is done, why not do a crambit? Yeah, okay. I feel like a dual crambit somehow just needs to happen. Kind of like a Velociraptor. That you can get the spin going on. Yeah, okay, so we're gonna add that to the list. You'll just trust, I'm not gonna write it down this moment because I've always wanted a crambit. Thank you for subscribing, that helps. It not only does it help get the more views out there, but it really helps in my own, when I'm in the forge and knowing, people actually kind of find this interesting. This is good fun, and I know I can share it with people. And hopefully, like some of you maybe think, hey, no, I want to try blacksmithing, or I want to get back into the martial arts, or neither of those things interest me, but you know what, I've been putting this off, and I want to get back to that. Ooh. One, I'm not important here. This human being with the flesh suit is just completely irrelevant. It's just the knowledge. And for me, 9 directions comes directly from Miyamoto Musashi. The idea of cutting in the 9 directions. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Finally with the thrust. So if you can understand the 9 cuts, and then also understand the 9 spaces. So as I can cut in those directions, I can also move in those directions. I can go forward, I can go back, I can go side by side. So if you were to study just the 9 cuts and then the 9 directions, you've already got a real good standpoint of being able to understand your own art. And as for me, I think as a martial artist, it is that solo training, that time where you spend with yourself, because it's about bettering ourselves. It's not about learning how to fight and to take over an adversary. It's about like taming your own ego. Hello, Earl Joan. Dual crambit does sound cool. Yes, it does. Great naming skills. Thank you. Yeah, my first cat was Black and White Kitty, and then my next cat made one hell of a noise constantly. It kind of sounded like screeching, so she was called Screech. And then later on there was Orange Kitty, and then there was like little Fat Face, who just had a really furry head. So thank you, but my naming is really sad. The Boba Fett does not totally fit me. It is. This is the Hasbro one. So this is one, well, come on, it's Boba Fett, and of course I will. Though I don't think you'd be able to hear me so well any longer. This is the Boba Fett. This will also, not this specifically, but this, I like the Mandalorian. So I'm working on my own helmet, but as I'm not Boba, I don't get the dent. And I'm not too sure if I want to have the little doohickey there. It's tough decisions. It's a tough life when you have to question, what kind of Mandalorian helmet should you make? Can you see that up there? There's that one, and then there's that one over there. But that's a video for another day. Little Fat Face, yeah. Yeah, I'd like to say that I took full ownership over that name, but that was mostly my grandmother, because it was Little Cat Face. But she did have a really fuzzy head, and that's why it's a little cat face. But my grandmother, I'm pretty sure it wasn't a hearing issue. She just likes to pretend like she had a hearing issue so she could change things. So it became a little fat face. Yeah, I'll definitely do it better, Amanda. Can you make a katana like in ancient times where you can cut bone with it? Oh, yeah. Yeah, I don't even need a katana to cut through bone. Most of my cutting knives cut through bones. So when I do a turkey dinner, I have to choose either a duller knife or just accept the fact that I'm going to serve someone a bit of bone. That bone, surprisingly, is pretty easy to cut through. Okay, I'm talking about chicken bones that are cut. You're talking about most likely human bones, like in the times where they used to do these tests. I'm going to say yes, just because I have confidence in myself and I can fail drastically. So yeah, I'm going to say yes, and I'll just try it. You core a bunch of tatame. We can find out. Do you make and sell them? I'm assuming you're talking about katana. No, I do make them, but I'm not ready to sell them. They need a lot more work still. This is aluminum. It's not the real thing. The hours. No, I'm not ready to sell those. And I need mine first. I have made bone in the handle. Who was it? A friend of mine was able to give me some really old steel, and he liked to wander through the woods. That was his form of relaxing, and he found a nice antler. So as long as we're counting antler as a bone, which I don't think is technically a bone, but we're going to count that because I use that as a handle. Cook with a sword? No. Though in Ninja Turtles, Casey Jones is using Leo's sword to cut the carrot switch. Gee, sadly, I've never done that either. No, never cooked with a sword. But if you count my sashimi, yeah, it's my sashimi knife, my sushi knife. It might as well be a sword. It's a blade, short sword. I think it's like 18 inches in just blade. Do you think that the old swords of ancient time, when they used the tatara, actually, no, modern time, there's no difference. The way that swords are being made today to the way that they were made long ago are still so rooted in history. And the idea of they stack all these, I'm fast forwarding through so many steps, but they stack all of these brittle pieces of steel so carefully, then wrap it with paper, then douse it with a liquid clay, and then quite carefully cover it with a bit of ash, rice ash, straw ash. They put it in the fire and they just wait. And as they're waiting, all of these sparks start to arise. So these sparks are the carbon from the steel starting to explode and just exit the steel. And that's why that the clay cover is on top. They pull it out that first time. And those hits, if you watch, they're really light. They're using usually 20-pound hammers, but they're just smushing them ever so gently. And after a few rounds of smushing generally, these smiths are just pounding onto the steel. So like it's really, you're kneading, like baking, you are kneading the steel into existence. I have not made an obsidian blade. Recently, I was just asked about the weapon samurai used to use. Go obsidian first. On my knife video, someone asked about an obsidian. That's a stone blade. No, I've never tried. I'm assuming that's like flint, so you've got to flake that off. That would be a really cool one. I'd need to find someone, because I think I would just make a lot of waste if I tried to do an obsidian without any help. I do know a lot of the samurai weapons as well. Happily, in ninjutsu, yeah, it's a really old art. It's a really secretive art. And I studied Budo Ninpo Taijutsu, which is just a long story, for 9 schools. So 3 of those were ninja schools, but 6 of them were samurai based. And for me, a lot of it, you're welcome. A lot of it was the samurai. I like kotoru. I like that upright, fighting techniques. And their weapons, of course, ninja had all of them as well, but you couldn't have them as well practiced or have the nicest, where the samurai had some really cool tools. So you've watched that, yes. Everyone should watch how these smiths, these artisans make these traditional swords. It is a thing of glory. I'm not saying war is a terrible thing and will always be a terrible thing, though in a sense it kind of helped the Japanese smith. That's terrible just to say. No, just a happiness came from it, that when the smiths after the war had to get together, they needed to bring their swords back into practice. And because of that, smiths talked for the first time like never before in history. the Japanese smith would have been solely, they had their own schools, and they coveted their secrets because so much of it was mysticism. Even today, it's a lot of mysticism. Where do you find dojos? Not only is it tough to find a good dojo, you got to then know how to ask and deal within the dojo. So Google search, I think, is a great way to start, depending on what kind of art you're looking for, what makes you feel like comfortable. And then the next stage is, once you find a dojo, talk to them and go ask if you can view a class and try a class. Try to work with that teacher, work with the students and talk to the students, see how they feel it. There's a whole other, start with Google. Find an art that you're interested in. Can you read my last comment? Can I? Oh, yes, I can. You should try to pure bone blade. I know it's not blacksmith, but it would be really cool. A pure bone blade, like just a bone to sharpen? That's crazy. I'd be down for it. I have some cow bones. It would never be really sharp, but it could be really interesting, like an occult style blade. What's the most popular project? Bone blade. I think it's a good idea. Okay, we like people with the bone blade. Yeah, a sharp bone. Okay, then Karambit, and apparently we're going to do a bone blade as well. Though I felt I missed one. What's your most popular project? That depends on, I guess we're asking me what I think the most popular project is. You'd think that'd be something I know, as I'm the person actually dealing with this stuff, but I don't know. I have no clue what the most popular. I think you would be better to ask what the most popular of what I'm making is. Sharp bone, some very old ivory. Yeah, I can't do ivory. That trade has got to, no, I just, not even. Some people have like old ivory that they've inherited, but I don't think I could even carve that. It just has the wrong energy for me. Ooh, can you make a scythe? Yes, I can make a scythe. I'm working on technically this is a scythe, but it's more of a comma because it's baby small. I think you mean like a big Reaper style scythe. And that would be pretty kick-ass. Like a fighting style scythe. I don't know if you could actually get through tatami, but that would be a fun idea. Oh, I missed you too? What did I miss now? Yeah, sharp bone. I missed a lot. This is great. Oh, bone blades. I think it's good. Please tell me katana are superior than the no dodge. No, it would be the user that would make it superior. I couldn't say one. Each tool in itself has its own ability of awesome, but it's the user that will actually bring that unison together to what would make a no dodge. Because a no dodge is pretty amazing. I remember seeing a video of this tiny little Japanese girl, and she's got a no dodge, like a 62-inch blade no dodge, and she was able to draw it from her belt. The technique of the, oh. That's great. Yeah, but no, I couldn't say one or the other. That's a play button. It's a cool button. Thank you. I want a play button. Karambit and Scythe would be good practice for each other. They would be. That Karambit style scythe worked so well. It didn't matter what it was going through. It just had such a hook. That little bit of pull, it just gave so much room upon that blade. I think something like this, with just, if we're cutting a finger, you've only got that little tiny curve. But when you have something that's just so curved to cut through, it just, I'm doing a terrible job of defining it, but it's nasty. That's what I'm saying. It is a nasty tool. So actual dual Karambit, you think a good knife fighter holding two, no, just run away. Just throw stones at them. Don't participate. Some nasty tools. Look at that. So that's, okay, here we go. Thank you. It's good. Sometimes I don't understand what I meant. Well, it's nice to have been able to answer so many questions. This will be my first live. I think I'm going to head because this has been 1 hour and all of you have been amazing. Thank you so much for watching and questioning, and I hope many of you have been inspired. So I hope to make this a regular thing, though I hope to not use the word so often as I do. Do you have a Kali stick for Call of Duty? No, I don't have any Kali sticks. Slingshots are super deadly. Super deadly, and you think tiny little aims, but now I'm getting off topic because I'll always talk about tools. Bottom of the top, awesome. earlier. I meant to cram it with the blade on the... Oh, okay, that's we're gonna have a lot of this is gonna be a fun channel. We're gonna be able to make a lot of crazy stuff. So I'm gonna go and I think maybe have dinner, probably not. So I wish you all the best and hope to see you soon. I know there's a button here I'm probably supposed to press to say stop. No, well, you got another question? Should we stay on for another 10 minutes? We can get a yes? If someone says yes, I'll stay on for another 10 minutes. Okay, we want some more live stream. Okay, let's give it 10 more minutes. 10 more minutes, and then we'll do more live streams and we can practice more. What's the difference between samurai and ninja? In many cases, no. Hey, Bob, you're leaving probably because you've got other things to do. The difference between samurai and ninja are so many different things, but really kind of little. Depending on what timeline you come from. You go like early Togakureru, like 900 years ago. Samurai didn't even exist at that point. Samurai is a much more modern term. So if we go today of those that serve, I think the biggest part is how much culture. I'm going to use the word culture here. That might not be the correct term. But the samurai had many more rituals. They had many more rules they had to follow. They were always working for their master. So anything that they did is going to directly reflect upon their master. They are of the fighting class. Where ninja were peasants. For many years, you think Togakureru, 900 years, they were referred to as shinobi. So these would have been mountain dwellers. Potentially many of them being quite peaceful, practicing their own art. So we could see tremendous difference. And then we fast forward to like Edo period, where Ieyasu hired many ninja and shinobi to act as gardeners for his palaces. But in that same time, that this new way of looking at warfare was changing, and ninja did some crazy things. Like ninja would stab people in the back. Samurai couldn't do that. You had to represent, call out your name and let the person know. The samurai wouldn't really run in a modern way, where ninja would run. And there was many little factors that could have made all the difference to winning a war. One of which I really enjoyed from a book from, I'm not even going to remember how to quote it, but it was a ninja having the debate with a samurai of, yeah, no, you have to lie. Like martial arts is deception. So by lying to the person you're fighting, you are giving into that deception and allows you to gain victory for your master. This isn't about you, it's about your master. I once heard a story of one samurai killing more than 100 ninja. Yeah, there's a lot of stories. There's stories of Musashi taking on, I think, 60. It's, right, depending on who you are, what timeline, what kind of ninja you're going after, and who wrote the story. Again, it's the mind. It's the mind that's going to give the victory, never the tool or the outcome of the art. It's the mind. Yes, katana rust. Katana rust, really nasty. But the caveat to that, that's when they do rust. To actually get a katana to rust can be quite hard because they're so finely polished. And because that polish is so fine, meaning the scratching is so small, it allows so little moisture to build up in those cracks that you don't get that rust. But when they do rust, they would need a whole new full polish. So one, you never touch the blade. So this is aluminum, it doesn't count. But the only part that it's ever allowed to touch is that little part of your hand when you're about to sheath it. No other part. But yeah, it's gonna rust because you're filling it full of grime and it's gonna look nasty. Thank you, Spookman. I'm doing my best. Hello, Dead Striking. Favorite type of folding knife? Honestly, it's one that I want to make. I want a live edge. I don't like folding knives because every folding knife I've seen is an edged tool, which means that they've made their blade, they've heat treated it, and then they've put two edges on it to make it sharp. And yeah, it's sharp, but it's not scary. So I think my favorite of what I'd like to make is to take a knife like this, let's say just a little bit bigger, and put the hole in and make this a folding mechanism. So it kind of looks like the kisaki of a sword, but then folds up. I think that would make an awesome folding knife. Not that this is a folding knife and also prohibited in Canada, probably why I think they're so cool. The knives where you just like click a button and they go boop. and then click a button, they go whoop. Oh, I think that's just wonderful technology. Multiple springs, lever action, mechanical. I wish they weren't prohibited. I got enough other stuff I can make, but there's others I would like the chance to make. Handle wrap of the katana real quick. Oh, the lighting is poor, but that is the handle wrap. A leather bag or satchel for throwing knives. Yeah, I've always liked that individual. Oh, you can't see that either. The individual, because if they're in a bag, they go clickety clack when you're running around. Yeah, power tools make things so much easier, but I don't like them. They don't. It's not my soul going into it. It's not my blood. This side note, this isn't one that I've wrapped, and this is a silk. This one, I can't get a proper angle for it, but it should have the hishigame. The hishigame is what, it's a nice katana. The hishigame and these little things make all the difference in that handle looking alive. And I may be butchering these. It's tiny little pieces of rice paper that are all squared. And these little beauties get placed this way into the handle or underneath the ito. And by placing that into the ito and you stuff them back, it gets that little bit of life onto the outside of the katana. Oh, it's just gorgeous. Oh, zabuza. Oh, you desu ne. That would be a giant sword. Can you imagine the weight on that thing? Thank you for choosing Zabuza's sword, though. Yeah, I could. I would. Could you imagine the fire to have to heat treat that sucker? You need more than a tree just to take that one out. Okay, I'm not adding that one to the list yet. I'm going to have to get more followers before that one happens. You say you are a samurai or a ninja. Oh, I'm just some schmuck that makes stuff. I don't know. Well, I live in 2024. I study this as like a historical. I like the art. Ronin, was that an option? I'm going to leave that for another day. I think it's best. What are others going to think that I am? I don't know if it matters what I think I am, but what others view me to be. Ooh, throwing knives. Oh, that's a good point. Yeah. So the idea is that with throwing knives, that you don't need to have them individual. You're going to use a lot of them. I don't have. All my throwing knives are in the shop right now because actually I've sold all of my throwing knives and I've just forged another, I think 15 of them. Yeah, and I'm a big fan of that idea of just keep throwing. I like the bow shuriken. They're lethal and they're nasty. You don't want to stay in front of them, but you can hold so many of them and throw even more of them. Do you forge weapons? Oh, hold on, ninja. I'm assuming is that from name? I'm going to say yes. Do you forge? Yes, I do forge all of my own stuff. It's more interesting that way. Gut sword as well. I'm going to have to start lifting weights. Yeah, because then, like, where do we stop? Why would we stop? These are all beautiful swords, and I thought a claymore was large, but yeah, do zabuzas and then guts. And then also, I don't know if you know, but Voltron. A Voltron sword is the strangest looking sword. It's got the weirdest handle, and it's got a little bloop that really hurts. I've made a wooden one, but I want a steel one. That's, of course, not to scale. That would be insane. But to do it like human scale of Voltrons. Trip, yeah, I probably missed your comment. More than a tree, better than start training for lumberjacks to mix. Yeah. Nice. Curved machetes for chopping wood. Anything for chopping wood. That just, what a practice. The idea of cutting with the sword, you've got one cut, two halves. So cutting wood is just such a mental expression of that philosophy that this is going my way. Ooh, a Khopesh style. I've made a Khopesh. I need to make another Khopesh. The first one I did, I loved it. It looked beautiful. I felt the guard was just a little too cartoonish for me, but my biggest part was I didn't spend enough time hardening that bronze. That it was a poured bronze, which means it comes in soft because it was just so hot and heated. So what I did afterwards, I took it to the anvil and hammered it to work harden it. But I feel I used the wrong geometric shape for the blade, and it cut, but it never cut as I imagined it would cut. I've never actually cut with bronze, so I should really cut with bronze first before I try that again. Okay, so we are at 1 hour, 10 minutes. Yes, I should. Thank you. You're too kind, Trip. Everyone, you're awesome. I look forward to, I know I'm not actually seeing you, but I look forward to hanging out with you all again. No. Favorite Ninja Turtle? Leonardo. I've never made a large axe. That is on the list. So I'm going to leave you with Leonardo. I'm going to wish you all the best and talk to you soon.